Good afternoon, everyone. Today is January 23rd, 2024. It's 3 p.m. This is a Prescott City Council voting meeting. Again, thank all of you who weren't here for the study session for braving these slight inclement weather to be here for our voting meeting. So we'll start off with the introductions and announcements from Mayor Pro Tem Connie Cantelmi.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have an announcement today, and we've been trying really hard to get this out to everybody. I talked a little bit, in fact, you and I both talked about it a little bit on Monday. The City Council Subcommittee on Appointments is seeking applications from citizens who are interested in serving on several boards, committees, and commissions. The City of Prescott is currently seeking applications for the following boards, committees, and commissions. Board, commission, and committee term number of upcoming vacancies must be a Prescott resident. The Board of Adjustment needs people, the Building Advisory and Appeals Board, the CDBG Citizens Advisory Committee, Fire Boards of Appeals, the Industrial Development Authority, the Pedestrian, Bicycle, and Traffic, the Advisory Committee, no, that is one. It's got a dot by it, I'm sorry. Pedestrian, Bicycle, and Traffic Advisory Committee, Planning and Zoning Commission, the Prescott Preservation Commission, Public Safety Personnel, Retirement System Police Board, the Public Safety, that's all one word too. I'm sorry. They've got dots by all of them. Retirement System Police Board, Public Safety Personnel, Retirement System, the Fire Board. Boards, commissions, and committees provide opportunities for citizens to take an active role in their local government. Members are appointed by the City Council upon recommendation from the Council Subcommittee on Appointments following review of their applications. Hurry, the deadline for application is January 26th. For more information on the groups, visit the city's website at City of Prescott Boards and Commissions, Vacancies, or contact the City Clerk Office at 928-777-1437. And I'm sure you'll probably get Miss Sarah Sipe. Thank you. Oh, Mayor.
Very good. We'll now have an invocation from Rich Stoffen from Pine Rock, and followed by a Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Cantelmi.
Thank you, Mayor. Will you join me in prayer? Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather. We know that there are many here who have things that they need to present, and there are issues that come up. We pray, Father, that you would be with each person, that they would be clear, calm, and be able to clarify their issue. We also pray for our council. I thank you for the mayor. I thank you for each one of these men and women who are here that represent the interest of the city. You say in your scripture that if we ask, that you will give us wisdom. So I ask for wisdom and understanding for each of them, that the issues would become very clear for them as well. And I thank you for this great city that we live in. And I pray that you would help us to be blessed, and that we would be a blessing to those around us. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Please stay standing, and we'll do the Pledge of the Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now have roll call, please.
Mayor Good.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantelmi.
Here.
Councilwoman Fruitworth.
Here.
Councilman Gambogi.
Here.
Councilman Montoya.
Here.
Councilman Moore.
Here.
And Councilmember Rusing.
Here.
All are present.
Next item is a presentation from the National Downwinders on National Downwinders Remembrance Day, which is January 27th. I think we have Sherry Hanna here to make this presentation. Welcome, Sherry.
Good afternoon, Mayor Good, Mayor Pro Tem Cantelmi, and members of the City Council. My name is Sherry Hanna, and I'm an Arizona Downwinder advocate. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today regarding January 27th, recognizing it as a National Day of Remembrance for American Downwinders. For those of you who are not familiar with what the Downwinders are, I would like to show a short video explaining the Downwinders. If you'll turn the volume up to high, and if you can dim the lights a little and then start the video. Sarah, thank you. As the Cold War intensified and the arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union escalated at a shocking pace, the need for more information regarding nuclear weapons became apparent. On December 18, 1950, President Harry Truman approved the nuclear proving ground, the Nevada Test Site, which was 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas, Nevada. The barren testing range carved out of the Mojave Desert would be home for the next several decades to 928 of the 1,054 above and below ground nuclear experiments conducted by the United States government. The testing finally ended in September 1992 when a moratorium went into effect. Before the moratorium, mushroom clouds were a familiar sight from the Las Vegas Strip. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy visited the Nevada Test Site. He has been the only sitting president to do so. In 1963, President Kennedy and Soviet President Nikita Khrushchev signed a treaty that required the superpowers to conduct nuclear experiments underground. This historic treaty banned nuclear testing in the air, oceans, or space. The first nuclear experiment in Nevada lit up the desert sky on January 27, 1951. The radioactive fallout blanketed not only the arid desert, but farm fields, homes, schools, factories, and businesses across the region. The wind carried contamination throughout parts of Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. People living in the affected areas were known as downwinders. From 1945 to 1962, the United States government conducted hundreds of nuclear tests which exposed citizens to radiation. Employees in the uranium mining industry were also exposed to toxic levels of radiation. In 1990, Congress passed the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act as an apology to individuals who developed certain cancers and other serious diseases related to nuclear weapons testing and uranium mining. Victims or their surviving family members are awarded amounts from $50,000 to $100,000. Free cancer screenings are available to qualified individuals. Thank you. As the video stated, in 1990, the United States Congress passed the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, better known as RECA. Since 2015, more than $2 billion in compensation has been paid out to qualified claimants. However, since 1990, data has revealed that more areas were affected than first thought, along with more data recognizing more cancer-related diseases appearing in those other areas affected. On September 21st, 2021, Senate Bill 2798, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act Amendments of 2021, was introduced by Senator Mike Crapo, Republican, Idaho. This bill would expand two programs that would compensate individuals who were exposed to radiation during certain nuclear testing or uranium mining and subsequently developed medical conditions, including cancers. This bill had broad bipartisan support. The bill would have expanded designated areas to include Colorado, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, Guam, and additional areas in Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. This would make more individuals who worked in uranium mining eligible for the RECA program, increase the amount of compensation awarded to, and provide medical benefits for eligible claimants, and extend for 19 years following the bill's enactment, found that support of this program was to ensure the statute of limitations for filing claims. If you'd show the picture, Sarah. In September of 2022, as an Arizona downwinder advocate, I was honored to be invited by the Union of Concerned Scientists to go to Washington to meet with and testify to legislators on the plight of the downwinders and how current RECA programs benefited downwinders. In July of 2023, Senator Josh Hawley, Republican, Missouri, attached the RICA amendments to the fiscal year 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, better known as the NDAA, to include the American citizens of his state that were victims of U.S. government radiation contamination in the greater St. Louis, Missouri area. For many months after attaching RICA to the NDAA, many downwinder advocates, including myself, sent videos, made phone calls, and sent emails to all legislators urging them to vote to pass the NDAA with the RICA amendments attached. Members of the Union of Concerned Scientists were in Washington during this time, meeting with legislators daily in support of the downwinder amendments. It was a very stressful time. Unfortunately, RICA was stripped from the NDAA before the NDAA was passed this last December 2023. To say we were disappointed is an understatement. I want to recognize Arizona Senators Mark Kelly and Kirsten Sinema, along with Arizona Congressman Eli Crane, Ruben Gallego, and Dr. Paul Gosar, who wrote letters of support and campaigned on the floors of Congress to support RICA. But our work is not over. The original RICA will expire this June of 2024. As time is of the essence, we are regrouping and plan to head back to Washington to push for Congress to extend RICA. Jeff Tim, Military and Veterans Affairs Administrator for Congressman Eli Crane, is here today to read a letter of support in behalf of the downwinders. Jeff?
Thank you, Sherry. Mayor Good, council members. My name is Jeff Tim. I'm the Director of Military and Veteran Services for Congressman Eli Crane, and he regrets that he wasn't able to be here, but sent this letter for me to read. Dear Mayor Good and Prescott City Council, last year, shortly after being sworn into Congress, I wrote to you expressing a commitment to learn more about the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, RICA, and issues affecting downwinders in Prescott. This year, I write to share with you what I have learned, as well as what kind of progress Congress has made on strengthening this vital program. As you know, between 1945 and 1992, the United States conducted 206 above-ground nuclear weapons tests, releasing harmful radioactive material into the air and blanketing parts of the United States, including Arizona. Downwinders continue to suffer health effects relating to the testing. Similarly, those who help mine, mill, and transport uranium needed for these weapons continue to bear the consequences of their work in defense of our nation. Most notably, many in Prescott were involved in the uranium industry during and after World War II, supporting our nation's critical power needs and assets for national defense. Their sacrifice protected our nation and our communities. While I represent you in Congress, I have worked across the aisle to fix this government-caused health disaster that has impacted many in the greater Prescott area over the last 80 years. Specifically, I have co-sponsored H.R. 6753, the Uranium Miners and Workers Act, which reapportions $475 million of unneeded COVID funding to Arizona miners and workers suffering from cancers and other diseases. Most recently, as Congress was considering the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA of 2023, I worked with Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, and Delegate Moylan, Republican from Guam, to reauthorize and strengthen the RICA program, though the final NDAA did not include it. While it has been encouraging to see Congress consider reauthorization for RICA, there is more work to be done. As we all know, RICA is set to expire June of this year. If Congress does not act, Americans poisoned by our government's nuclear tests and waste will lose the life-saving help afforded by the RICA program for the last 30 years. This year, I write to commit to protecting the integrity of the RICA program. I will do everything in my power to ensure the downwinders, uranium miners, uranium millers, and ore transporters harmed are not ignored by the federal government that failed them. Again, I am honored to have my letter read before you today and look forward to representing your perspective and wishes in Congress. Sincerely, Elijah Crane, Member of Congress. Thank you.
Please extend our appreciation to Congressman Crane for his support on this important issue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem can tell me.
Sherry, I want to thank you for keeping this in the public eye, and I want to encourage you to make sure you keep this awareness alive. Those of us, and many of us actually sitting up here, I grew up in the military. My father was 22 years in the Air Force, and he lost his life because of another experiment we had called Agent Orange. And I know we've had several other people here that grew up on Air Force bases. Kathy was a daughter also of a military person. And I suffer myself from cancer, things that I was exposed to as a child. I grew up on military bases, missile sites. We didn't know half of this stuff. And I think if the public honestly knew something like this that can stay out in the public eye, people have to be aware of this. And our officials and the people making these decisions need to understand the cost of life when we start to dabble with these kinds of, they're basically experiments. And look what happened to you, look what happened to your family and mine and several others. So thanks for doing it. All is not lost. Keep up the fight. Keep it out in the eye, out in the public eye. Thank you.
Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. I'd like to share that my family and myself, we are all downwinders, and I married into a family from Prescott, and they are all downwinders. And sometimes, you just wonder when you go for that annual physical if your time is going to be up and you're going to get some bad news, because it's kind of like a cloud that hangs over your head constantly. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. We really appreciate it. And as the Mayor Pro Tem said, there's still opportunities to have this authorization extended or renewed. So one thing we all know from government, you got to be persistent. And you certainly have shown that. Thank you. All right, we'll now proceed to the open call to the public.
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Prescott welcomes public engagement. Residents may comment and address the council regarding matters that are not included on the posted agenda during the call to the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a green speaker card and submit it to me prior to the meeting being convened. As a reminder, speakers are limited to 4 minutes, and the call to the public will be limited to 40 minutes in total, with the following stipulations. Citizens will be limited to addressing council on the same topic only 4 times in total. If a topic has been addressed more than 5 times by different speakers, the mayor may limit future discussion on the topic, and topics of a primarily national concern may be limited at the discretion of the mayor. I do have comment cards from Joanne Allers and Bonnie McMinn.
Okay, all right. Let's see if this will work. Thank you, Mayor, Council, for the opportunity to address you this afternoon, and hello to staff too. I'm Joanne Ohlers, speaking as the chair of Save the Dells. We appreciate the information shared at the December 12th, I'm going to read the entire title, Presentation and Discussion Regarding Community Outreach and Public Participation for the Effluent Tank Pipeline and SR 89 Widening Project, and the discussion that ensued. The major results of the survey related to the widening and improving the roadway were enlightening but not surprising. And they reflect many of the positions of Save the Dells. For instance, we don't think the widening will serve the greater goods of the public. It's not likely to increase safety, and there are suitable alternatives. We think blasting our scenic 2-lane entrance to Prescott and the Dells into an expressway would be an irreversible disaster that wouldn't benefit Prescottonians, but the loss would be at their expense. During the discussion at the December study session, the mayor and council indicated consideration of smaller, targeted changes for safety. We would like to expand on this welcome public discussion by presenting a petition with accompanying signatures to adopt a resolution.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Bonnie McMinn. You already know that, but I am presenting as a citizen 306 signatures that were collected over the past several weeks in support of the resolution that I'll be reading in just a moment. The petition for the Prescott City Council, Prescott, Arizona, to adopt a resolution regarding the SR 89 roadway and infrastructure improvement project. In accordance with the City of Prescott Charter, Article 2, Section 18, we, the undersigned citizens of the City of Prescott, County of Yavapai, and State of Arizona, respectfully petition this Prescott City Council to consider, approve, and adopt, in accordance with the City of Prescott Charter, Article 7, the attached proposed resolution regarding the SR 89 roadway and infrastructure improvements project. This petitioner welcomes the City Council to engage petitioner in discussions regarding modifications of the proposed resolution prior to acting on this petition. I have personally signed this petition with my first and last name. I am a citizen and a qualified elector of the State of Arizona, County of Yavapai, City of Prescott. And the resolution, which I hope won't be too long, this resolution regarding the SR 89 roadway and infrastructure improvement project. Whereas the mayor and council of the City of Prescott recognize State Route 89 passes through a beautiful portion of the heart of the Granite Dells, which is closely associated with the City of Prescott's regional identity and economic development, and is the only roadway from which people can see this beauty up close from their vehicles. And whereas the mayor and the Council of the City of Prescott are considering SR 89 roadway and infrastructure improvement projects, and whereas the centralization component of the project can proceed without widening through the Narrows, and whereas any consideration of widening related to the roadway and infrastructure improvements to the portion of SR 89 passing through the Granite Dells Narrows, an approximately 1 mile segment, will have negative impacts on tourism, neighboring residents, motorists, and the public. Now, therefore, it shall be resolved by the council in the City of Prescott as follows. Section 1, that the City of Prescott, a municipal corporation of the State of Arizona, has authority to construct roadway and public infrastructure improvements within the boundaries, including that portion of SR 89 that passes through the Granite Dells Narrows and is the subject of the SR 89 roadway and infrastructure improvement project. Section 2, that the City of Prescott City Council is authorized to schedule public hearings and meetings to solicit and consider public comments prior to taking City Council action. Section 3, that prior to voting on any stage beyond the presentation of the initial concept of the project, the Prescott City Council shall require a public comment period of no less than 60 days, and during such period, the city shall conduct at least 2 duly noticed public hearings and at least two study sessions. Such study sessions shall include an in-depth discussion of alternatives to blasting and a 5-lane road, for example, flex lanes, smart lights, and written details including traffic and financial data regarding the conditions under which these alternatives are deemed acceptable or unacceptable. The city shall publish the public comments within 10 days following each study session. And Section 4, that prior to the end of the 60-day public comment period referenced in Section 3 above, 1, the City of Prescott shall conduct its own traffic study prior to issuing any request for proposal related to the project. 2, any request for proposal related to the project shall be presented to the public prior to issuance of potential vendors. And 3, detailed financial analysis of the entire project, including a right of return on investment analysis provided to the public. And 4, evidence of compliance with the City of Prescott Capital Improvement Program, the SIP, which is also included in this resolution. I respectfully request that this resolution be passed, approved and adopted by this mayor and council. Thank you very much. And I have for the city clerk the copy of the petition, the copy of the resolution, and 306 citizen signatures. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Joanne.
That's all, Mayor.
All right, we will move on to the consent agenda now. Does anybody want to pull an item from the consent agenda, since there's only one item there? In that case, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott.
The
Yep.
wrong
No,
item.
We're on
Councilmember.
the consent agenda.
I'm
not
sorry.
ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance number.
No, we're still not there. We just have to.
Consent
I give up.
agenda.
Consent agenda.
8A.
Item 8A. Up. Right there.
Thank you. Approval of meeting minutes from the January 9, 2024 executive session, the January 9, 2024 study session, the January 9, 2024 voting meeting, and the January 12, 2024 executive session.
Second.
A motion and a second. Thank you very much. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Very good. Now we'll move to the consent ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. Adoption of ordinance number 2024-1853, an ordinance of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing amendment number 2 to lease agreement between the City of Prescott and Zion's Bank Corporation, DBA National Bank of Arizona.
All right. Do we have any comments or concerns? Then I'll entertain a motion on this consent ordinance.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 2024-1853, authorizing amendment number 2 to lease agreement between the City of Prescott and Zion Bank Corporation, DBA National Bank of Arizona.
Second.
A motion and second. We don't have any public comment on this, do we?
We do not.
No, okay. Then in that case, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Very good. Moving right along, we'll start on our regular agenda. Item 10A.
Approval of request to apply for the Arizona Department of Housing grant.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council and public. I'm Amber Fraser with the City Manager's Office and also one of the staff liaisons for the Workforce Housing Committee. And I'm here today to give a presentation on a funding opportunity that we have been made aware of and ask for approval to apply for that funding. So the Arizona Department of Housing sent out a notice of funding availability for approximately $2 million available in state housing trust funds and are offering up to $200,000 per applicant. These funds are to assist local jurisdictions in the development of affordable housing plans. So eligible applicants include local jurisdictions that don't have existing affordable housing plans, and jurisdictions developing housing plans for the first time will be prioritized. Though we have done previous assessments, we've never actually adopted a housing plan nor enacted one, so we hope to be prioritized in that list. Per the notice, applicants must include the following components to be eligible: conduct a housing needs assessment, identify housing initiatives to reduce housing barriers and increase production of housing, create an action plan to implement the initiatives, institute an educational plan for public outreach, and the housing plan must be adopted and commitment must be made to implement the plan. And funding may also be used to fund eligible costs along with housing plan creation, which could include a project manager for creation and implementation. So for those of you who were able to attend our joint meeting last week, you'll see why this is such perfect timing and why we're excited about this. So it really aligns with a lot of the goals that the Workforce Housing Committee has been working towards. And some of those goals include determining the housing needs and unit needs now and in the future, pursuing for funding for a position to manage the goals and tasks, creating different initiatives from incentive and education packets to identifying financial programs, and creating a housing policy to reduce housing barriers for our workforce and our workforce housing developers. We've also discussed with a lot of you how important that we feel it is as well to have an education plan for the public, for our workforce, and for workforce developers to let them know what options are available. And we hope that this housing plan assessment could assist with that as well. So we've discussed that over the past couple of weeks and what the Workforce Housing Committee has been working towards this past year. So, hold on one second. This is the proposal timeline. So we were notified about this opportunity in the beginning of January, and the turnaround is fairly quick, but we are prepared, along with my co-liaison, Michael McInnes. As soon as we hopefully get approval, we are ready to get the proposal submitted on time. We will be notified about 30 days later of if we were accepted to receive the full 200,000, or depending on how many people apply for it, we could get less. But we'll know in about 30 days, and then at that point, we must expend any funds received by June 30th of 2026. So I went through that really fast, but if anybody has any questions, that's pretty much the
Councilman Montoya.
Thank you, Mayor. Amber, if you could go back a couple slides, you had said something, I think, here. It says the housing plan must be adopted and commitment must be made to implement the plan. Is that a contingency of the grant award?
Correct.
Okay. So, and the reason I'm asking is because I know we've had grants in the past where we've approved the application for, and then when kind of the rubber meets the road on the implementation of that grant, then we kind of get cold feet or decide to kind of kick the can down the road. So just so I know that if we've, essentially in applying for this grant, we're not committed to it, but we are saying that we are interested in the idea of moving forward and adopting and committing to implementing a plan, essentially.
Yes. So if we get funding, then we would at that point look at how much funding we receive and then do a housing assessment to create a housing plan, which would be along with the workforce housing and council's guidance, that whole process as well, so that hopefully we are able to provide a plan that everyone is in support of.
That makes sense. And then my kind of, I guess, follow-up question to that is, my understanding from having watched that joint meeting is that there is some desire to create a kind of permanent position, or at least a position to kind of help implement this. Would that be part of what the scope of the application of this grant assumes as well?
So we're still learning a bit about this. So we do have an email out to them to find out some additional information, but this would likely go into a consultant or contracted person to work specifically on creating the housing plan and assessment.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantelmi.
Thank you, Mayor. Amber, thank you for that. And I know a few people had to miss the meeting when we all got together, but I'm the council liaison for the Workforce Housing Committee. We've been working on this issue for, I think it's been over a year now. I was hoping Mike Pham would be able to be here. He's our chairman, director, whatever you want to call him. But we've studied this issue, and Chelsea's been very instrumental in bringing together all the information. One of the greatest needs we have in here, as I've said many times, is are the workers and the doctors for the hospital. They came in front of us. We invited a lot of the stakeholders, and we discovered that just in the hospital alone, they could use 1,200 units right now, workforce housing. They're busing nurses up here. It's become a problem. Many of the nurses have to commute. Many of them are coming up from Phoenix. So we do have a problem. Police and fire was involved in that, and we also had, I believe, hotel motel people came in and weighed in with several of us on their needs also. So it is a need in the area. I think we're making some headway, but it's a little bit of a moving target. We've got a lot more studying we need to do. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Let me tell you, we are considering every different sort of housing, from a Quonset hut all the way up to a home. I mean, apartments, condos, townhomes. It's not going to be one big project-style project, if you will. It'll be a variety of different things, with the eventual hope that it'll move into home ownership for most of these people and they can stay in the area. So this was a little bit of a surprise to be able to have this grant, and many of the people on the committee feel that the city does need somebody that can devote 100% of their time, and I'm hoping we can find somebody that has some grant writing ability as well, to be able to work with the developers and the people that specialize in workforce housing. So I'm excited to see this, and I hope we can pass it today. Thank you. Thanks, Amber, for all your work.
And like you said, this really goes hand in hand beautifully with what the Workforce Housing Committee has been working towards, and it would be a great first step in really getting a wealth of data that could help with workforce and any other areas that we could need it for.
Yeah, it's a very good send off. It's a good start for us.
Absolutely.
To be able to have that, so the taxpayers don't end up footing the bill for yet another thing. Thank you.
All right.
Councilman Gambogi.
I have two comments. One, a call to action to the community out there, and secondly, a question for Amber. In 2005, so if my math is correct, that's 24 years ago, the general plan called for affordable housing. In 2015, the general plan called for affordable housing. And if you were around back then, you voted for that and improved it to the tune of about 80+%. Yet here it is 2024, and we really don't have affordable housing. The affordable housing goes beyond doctors and nurses. It goes to Amy Bonney's policemen. It goes to Hold Your Doors firemen. It goes to teachers in the community. If we're going to have good teachers, good firemen, good policemen, then they need to be able to afford to live here. Now, my question is, I'm always a big fan of exploring unintended consequences. So we get a grant. What's the hooks on the grant?
That's a great question. So the main part of the grant is that we have to accomplish all of these. So we have to get an assessment, which will take staff time, but hopefully we're able to have a consultant. If not, staff is prepared to fulfill these needs to create the housing plan as well as implement it.
You had a figure of $200,000 per person. Is it applicant?
Per applicant.
Per applicant. So is that OTO? One time only?
Yes. Sorry.
And then if more people come in, do they also get 200,000?
So each could get up to a maximum of 200,000. If they get more applicants, and depending on what is in each proposal, there could be less. We did participate in a webinar that there were about 30 to 35 different entities that were participating. Some of them were concerned about the turnaround time, as this is fairly short notice for a funding opportunity. But it is a maximum of 200,000, but we could get less.
Good job. Thank you, Amber.
Not a problem.
Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you. Thank you, Amber. If Prescott's going to continue to be the economic powerhouse for Yavapai County, we need to have a workforce, and we need to show that we're serious about solving this problem. And that's why I completely would support applying for this grant. Thank you very much. Oh, also, I would like to clarify for the public that we're talking workforce housing. We're not talking homeless housing and indigent housing or migrant housing. We are talking workforce housing for people that work in this community, that are planning to live in this community and contribute to it. Thank you.
Any other comments or concerns? I'll entertain a motion on this then.
Mayor, I move that we approve the request to apply for the grant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment?
No, Mayor.
All right, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you all so much, and we'll get going on that.
Very good. We'll move on to item 10B, please.
Approval of City Contract Number 2024-154 for the purchase of one Grounds Mower 4500 mower, two Greensmaster 3250D, two Reelmaster 5510D, and two Procore 648S mowers from Simpson Norton.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, members of the public. Joe Baines, Recreation Services Director. So in 2015, when Recreation Services, the golf course was brought into our department, there was a lot of deferred maintenance that had happened over the years. As many of you know, in the early 2000s, golf rounds started to decrease and municipal golf courses were struggling. So we've worked really hard over the last few years to upgrade a lot of that. We've been very aggressive with our capital planning. We've done a lot of work, especially on our irrigation. We feel pretty good about where we're at right now, at least in being able to pause. I will tell you right now, I know this is a big number, a lot of equipment, but I will tell you that I think this if this purchase is approved, it'll give us the ability to pump the brakes a little bit on some of the capital improvements that need to happen there over time. Again, because we've been very aggressive in doing some of our work, and we've discovered some things that weren't as bad as what we thought too. So it's been a great journey with that. The golf course has not really had any large equipment purchases since 2007 was the last major big spread that we bought. There's been a few sprinkled in over the years, but very, very little. Having a reliable fleet is really important to us. So I guess maybe to paint the picture for you, it's really it's like an orchestra. At 5 o'clock in the morning, or depending about the time of year, all the maintenance people meet. They all get on their pieces of equipment. They all have their duties to do. You send them off to the 36-hole golf complex to do what they're supposed to do. The minute you have a breakdown, all of a sudden everything becomes jangled. You've got to move, if it's a rough mower, you got to move a rough mower from the south course to the north course, and of course everything from there is just a domino effect. So having reliable equipment will allow us to keep up with the play that we have. I will tell you also that since 2015, rounds have increased 42%. It's pretty significant. In 2014, we did 58,000 rounds. We're averaging about 88,000 rounds a year now, depending upon weather. It's weather dependent, of course. I wanted to point out also in 2007, we did an economic impact report National Golf Foundation did for Antelope Hills and its effect on the community. And they came up with about a $7 million annual economic impact from the visitation that it creates, from the revenues that it creates and everything too. So it certainly does contribute to our economy here. I could go through each one of these units and tell you how many hours they have on them, but I'll just give you a little snippet of that. One of the rough mowers that we want to replace has 17,000 hours on it. The industry standard is about 5,000 hours or 5 years. We always go a little past those recommendations, but 17,000 hours. On the two fairway units that we're looking at, one has 9,000 hours and the other one has 11,726 hours. So as you can tell, this is leading to some downtime, which again creates that catastrophe that can happen in trying to get the tee times out at 7 o'clock when we've got 2 hours ahead of them to get things done. So really everything has to happen bang, bang, bang. And we've been kind of struggling with that a little bit with some of our aging infrastructure. I do have the general manager for Antelope Hills, Justin Henderson, is here if you have any questions for him. And of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Councilman Montoya.
Thank you, Mayor. Joe, I'm not a golfer, so I don't enjoy the golf course personally, but I know it's an amenity that a lot of our residents take advantage of and enjoy. And I guess I kind of look at some of these improvements that you're talking about equipment. I think you've been here recently since I've been on council talking about improving golf carts and things of that nature, updating the fleet of golf carts and these things. And to me, it seems necessary. It's just part of if we're going to be a community that has a municipal golf course, these are the investments we have to make. And so I guess it seems pretty straightforward to me from that regard. One thing I wanted to ask you about, and you kind of alluded to this in the study session when Parks and Rec came up to kind of talk about what Parks and Rec is doing. It sounds like we're getting close to closing that delta of the amount of essential, for lack of a better way to put it, subsidy that comes from our general fund into the golf course, where essentially the golf course can kind of run more as an enterprise fund. Can you speak to that at all? And if I'm totally off base, tell me I'm totally off base, but
No.
I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit.
Thank you for the question, Councilman Montoya. Yes, we've closed that gap significantly, depending upon the year, of course, because it's kind of like farming. I always use that analogy, but it's kind of like farming. If you have a bad weather year, your rounds are going to be down, and your revenues are down consequentially from that. But in general, we've closed that gap on that subsidy quite a bit. We have been eating some of that up in some of these aggressive capital programs that we put in place, which are much, much needed. But I really see a point in time, we again continue to grow rounds every year. We look at our rate structure on a quarterly basis, or even sometimes more often than that, to create more revenue. So yes, I think we're headed in the right direction on that end.
And Joe, I'll just add one more thing, which I think one of the benefits this course represents for our community is the ability, and I'm looking at Sherry Hanna in the audience here. I know she does the firemen and police Foundation charity golf course event out there, or charity golf event out there. So to me, when you have a municipal golf course like this, it really is an amenity for residents. And we have a lot of folks who, frankly, are living on fixed income. This is a leisure activity for them. Keeping it in a municipal level makes it so it's accessible for people who might not otherwise be accessible for. And so to me, I think, because of that, and because of the nature of it's kind of like doing preventive maintenance on your car. Sometimes you're going to have to get new tires, you're going to have to get new brakes. Those things cost money, but you got to do them to keep the car rolling down the road. We've got to buy this equipment to keep the golf course rolling down the fairway, I guess. So thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Councilman Gambogi.
Joe, if my math is right, some of that equipment is 17 years old.
That's correct.
At ODark 30, when the Antelope Hills Golf Course 7th Fleet set sail, as Joe mentioned, there's a bunch of equipment that goes out the door, like in any fleet. It's not just an aircraft carrier, it's not just a destroyer or cruiser or submarines. They all sail together. And they all have to be able to support one another, just as this equipment does. I think, having lived in so many different communities with golf courses, I think Prescott does a wonderful job with their golf courses. It seems to be the only entity that's supposed to make money, whereas basketball courts and pickleball courts and trails don't seem to have to make money. I think this is one of the premier opportunities in Prescott, and I wholeheartedly support the purchase of the fleet of equipment so that they can all work together.
Well, I agree with those comments. I think our golf course not only is one of the last things people see when they head to the airport to take a vacation, but the first thing that people see when they decide to come to Prescott as a tourist or maybe a business owner who's considering relocating or expanding their business. So it's always a very positive experience to see that golf course as it surrounds the airport. I know, just reading the most recent Arizona Golf report, a lot of municipal courses throughout the state are looking to possibly use different types of grass so that they can have less water use. Even one type of grass now that might eliminate the overseeding that causes a pretty significant reduction in rounds during that period in October, that a lot of water is used, and good luck trying to make a 20-foot putt. But I think upgrading a lot of the irrigation, that it was, as you said, deferred maintenance. We had a lot of standing water and other problems there that made playing, especially the South Course, a little more of a challenge. But it's just remarkable when we met with those consultants, the fact that we're continuing to grow rounds, total rounds. The demand on that golf course continues to be quite impressive. So if we make the right investments in our equipment and how the golf course is used, I think we might be able to get to the point where it actually is generating a net benefit financially for the city. So I applaud all the work that you've done on that, Joe, over the last number of years. I know it's been a big challenge, rebuilding bunkers and all those other things. We've got a great, I'd probably say it's probably one of the top 10 municipal courses in the whole state. And because of that, we get so many competitive tournaments that want to use that course for whether it's Embry-Riddle or other college golf, and you got the father-son tournaments and things like that. It's just, I think it's a great amenity that we can be very proud of in the city. So I support this investment. I support the continued improvements out at the golf course now and in the near future. Thank you. Do we have any other comments or concerns? No. I'll entertain a motion. Do we have any public comment?
We do, Mayor.
Okay.
Patrick Kirkendall.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Pat Kirkendall, 5610 Hole-in-One Drive. I ask that the city purchase the necessary equipment to support Antelope Hills Golf Course. My second job was at the golf course in 1980, and I remember the pass-me-down equipment that we got from A.C. Williams and the Parks and Recreation Department. The mechanic, Frank Nyes, kept things running, but it was mostly patchwork. Over the years living and playing golf out there, I still see some of the old Ford tractors working to keep the golf course mowed and in great playing condition. We need to thank previous councils for recruiting Joe Baines from the private sector. Joe is a true advocate for the golf course and runs the Parks and Recreation Department with the taxpayers in mind. The golf course is a jewel for the city of Prescott. Its economic impact is important and brings countless numbers of bed nights into the local hotels. The golf tournaments generate hundreds of thousands of dollars annually to local charities and nonprofits. We have hundreds of golf tournaments that are held at Antelope Hills, with some being over 55 years consecutive. Why not spend some money on equipment and let's make Antelope Hills the best municipal course in Arizona? It was at one time. Thank you for your time.
That's all.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion now.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve City Contract 2024-154.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. We'll move on to our last item, 10C.
Approval of appointment of an interim city manager.
We're going to have somebody make a presentation on this.
Mayor, I can speak to that just real briefly. This item before you has a couple of options, both of which have been discussed, as you know, by the council in executive sessions. I know that Brandon Nunez, our HR director, is here, who's available to present any information based on the discretion and direction that council would like to give. So at this time, we're happy to take any questions from you regarding a direction forward, and Brandon's here as well.
Thank you, Brandon. If you can lay out our options.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Brandon Nunez, HR Director. So we presented two options for you all to decide on our placement of a during this leadership transition. Our first option would be to appoint an interim candidate as our interim city manager. The interim candidate is Joe Baines. Option two would be to utilize a placement service called Interim Public Management. This is an organization based out of Scottsdale who's been around for about 10 years. They have access to 250 professionals for local government, cities, counties, school boards, fire districts, et cetera. The fee for interim IPM, as they refer to themselves, is $1,900 to retain their services. If we retain their services, they would give us access to a minimum of 3 candidates for us to consider for an acting city manager. The cost for their salary would depend on the quality of the candidate and the qualifications of the candidate. For example, if we were to select a candidate with limited experience from a small town, their salary would cost less than somebody who's been a city manager for a large organization. So those are the two options that I laid out, and we're here to answer any more questions or get your input.
Councilman Gambogi.
Mr. Mayor, Brendan, I think we had 3 options, and the third option was all of the above.
Correct.
That makes
Councilwoman
no sense.
Fruworth.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I believe that it's our responsibility to be able to take a look at and do our due diligence on all of the options. It won't take much time from what we saw. And so I believe that we should at least sign the $1,900 contract, take a look at the options, and then we can make a well-informed decision on behalf of the public and the staff.
Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Mayor.
I appreciate Lois's comments, and I know we talked about this in executive session, but I do want to go on the record for the sake of city employees that I strongly am in favor of appointing Joe Baines as the interim Public Works Director. I think it would be a nice transition while we're waiting for a new city manager. He's an internal candidate. He's very involved in the internal workings of the city. He works with fleet. He works with buildings. He works with Parks and Rec. He works with fire. He interacts with all of the different departments in our city because of fleet and maintenance. And I think Joe would represent the city well in that interim position. And I will support looking at IPM candidates, but I do want to go on the record that I would strongly recommend and support Joe Baines as the interim city manager.
Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you. I also admire Joe Baines for all he's done for the city. But on the other hand, this is a business decision, and we need a professional manager. We need to start with a clean slate. So that's why I would approve, I support option 2, to enter into an agreement with interim public management to hire a temporary interim city manager and until we can find a permanent manager. Thank you.
Did you have a comment? Did you have a comment? I thought you were up there. Okay. Yeah, I too support the option of looking at what our total choices are. One of the things I've always told my kids that the true possibilities for success in life are being able to have choices. The more choices you have, the more likely you can make the best choice. In my professional career, I always found out that deciding on who's the best currently available is not necessarily the best decision, rather than trying to find who's the best possible. Right now, we're still waiting for the governor to sign off on the charter amendments that we voted to approve and canvassed back in the end of November. So until that happens, the charter amendments that we voted on are not effective. So I was been on the phone with the governor's office the last couple of days trying to say, you know, by the way, we've been waiting for you. And some of the on her staff say, what are you talking about? I said, we sent our charter amendments for the governor's approval, weeks and weeks ago. And they finally realized that, yeah, it does require the governor's signature. So one of those charter amendments relates to the conditions of the city manager and how they retain or lose their city management position. So I think it's important before we appoint an interim city manager, and obviously we are recruiting for a permanent city manager, that those people understand what the conditions are for their maintaining that position. So we just got word from the office that they expect to have that signed off and back to us either late this week or early next week. So we don't have to rush into making a decision here. But I think it's important that we do look at the options available to us and being able to have an interim city manager potentially that can be unbiased and has experience in city management, has the right credentials and qualifications that we list right now as we are looking for a permanent city manager. It's important that we be able to justify any decisions that happen between now and when we have a permanent city manager, that they're made by people that have the long-term credentialed experience to make those decisions. So I want to be on the record too that I think Joe Baines has done just an exceptionally good job handling our Parks and Recreation Department, and of course now he's responsible for fleet management too. So that's a heavy lift to be able to handle all of city management and be able to keep oversight of his departments. So I think having these choices is the best option that we have right now. Mayor Pro Tem Cantelmi.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor, I have a quick question for Joe. Lois referred to this as we talked about in exec session. So if we approve option number 2, Joe will come back and be on the list of the production. So do we?
Yeah, I think that is what was meant by option 3, all of the above. But hiring this service doesn't bind you to hire one of the 3 candidates. So if you go forward with choosing the service, you choose the service, you'll get the candidates, you'll interview them, and you remain open to have a choice at that point.
But basically, if we move to approve either option 1 or option 2, and we approve option 2, are we adding an option 3?
No,
And can we?
you wouldn't be adding the option 3. I think that your discussion would be sufficient. You'd talk with Joe Baines about whether he's available at that point. But option 2 does not foreclose the ability to hire Mr. Baines in the future.
Okay, then I'm going to move. Kathy, were you going to do that? Or
Hold on a second. Councilwoman Rusing.
I was ready to make a motion, but I was going to ask first if there was any public input.
There's not.
Thank you.
Councilman Gambo, did you have a comment?
I wanted to make a motion.
I requested it first.
Rock, paper, scissors on who gets to take the motion. But
I requested first.
all right, Council Member Rusing.
Thank you. I move that we approve option 2 to enter into an agreement with Interim Public Management, IPM LLC, to hire a temporary interim city manager through their professional services.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, does that include consideration of Joe Baines after we get the other 3?
I believe it does.
Well, I'd like that to be part of the motion.
Okay, you'll have to reverse your motion and restate it.
Let me restate it. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve option 2 to enter into an agreement with Interim Public Management, IPM LLC, to hire a temporary interim city manager through their professional services, and that we will consider Mr. Joe Baines for the position also.
Mr. City Attorney, I think that works, doesn't it?
It's a valid motion. I don't know if it's exactly what you want or not, but it's a valid motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Well, then I second it.
Okay, Lois does a second on that revised motion. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 6-1.
All right, that concludes the business of the City Council today. I'll close with a quote from another one of our founding fathers, John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams. Patience and perseverance have a magical effect before which difficulties disappear and obstacles vanish. This meeting's adjourned.